This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
I call to order this regular meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors on this Tuesday, February the 18th. Supervisors, please rise for honoring of the flag and a moment of reflection by Supervisor Kimberly Cronk. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would it be okay if I ask if we could all sit? Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay. More comfortable. Thank you. And in honor of Black History Month and our U.S. history, I wanted to share an article that was published in the New York Times on January 19th, 2020. It's called The Agitated MLK I Came to Love. When I was young, I idolized, it's written by Charles Blow. When I was young, I idolized the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the way most boys look up to athletes or pop stars. I had a poster of him. I had a T-shirt with his face on it. I recited his I Have a Dream speech. It seemed to me that he was a role model, an example of a life for a Southern boy who loved books and learning, leadership, and public speaking. There was a dignity about King to which I aspired, a politics of character, a Southern erudition that was rooted in religion but encompassed an exquisite learnedness. He was a Black man whom most people had come to venerate. When existing, it seemed above the trivialities of tense day-to-day racial exchanges, one existing on a higher moral plane. But as I grew older and learned and read more about King, it became even more clear to me that the King I had been fed was a caricature of the man he was. I had been taught a reduced king, smooth and polished, a one-dimensional impersonation of a person. I had been taught only the dream king. That is what America wants King to remain, frozen in perpetual optimism, urging more than demanding, appealing to America's better angels rather than ruthlessly calling out its persistent demons. But that must not be done. That must not be done. As King said in a 1967 interview when asked about the dream speech, after much soul-searching, he had come to see that some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. That evolution toward a more solid realism, toward the more rational King, toward the more radical King, is why I happen to believe that one of King's most consequential speeches is a little-discussed address he gave in 1967 at Stanford University. It was called The Other America. In it, King blasted large segments of white society for being more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. He slammed what he called the white backlash for being the cause of Black discontent and demands for Black power rather than the result of it, calling it merely a new name for an old phenomenon. And he declared that true integration is not merely a romantic or aesthetic something where you merely add color to a still predominantly white power structure. This speech was delivered after the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As King put it in the 1967 interview, passage of those acts came at bargain rates. He explained, it didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation. It seems that King was even open to the idea of reparations, if not explicitly by name, at least in spirit. King said in his Stanford speech, in 1863 the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery, but at the same time the nation refused to give him land to make that freedom meaningful. And at the same period, America was giving millions of acres, land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that America was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor that would make it possible to grow and develop, and refused to give that economic floor to its black peasants. He extended this thought in other speeches, pointing out that not only did the government give the land to these white people, it also used government money to start land grant colleges to teach them how to farm, sent out county agents to further their expertise, offered low-interest loans so that they could mechanize, and instituted a system of subsidies for them. And these became the very people telling the black man he ought to lift himself up by his own bootstraps. As King put it about his Poor People's Campaign, now when we come to Washington in this campaign, we're coming to get our check. King was assassinated a month before the campaign was supposed to head to Washington. And King was not afraid to point out white people's hypocrisy, particularly that of white moderates, who were opposed to anti-black cruelty but did not genuinely endorse black equality, fully and unequivocally. King wrote in his letter from a Birmingham jail, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanners, but the white moderate who is devoted more to order than to justice." As a child, I idolized the narrowed King. As an adult, I love the more complicated King, agitated, exhausted, and even angry. In a recent article, I noted that it's noted that Wisconsin currently ranks number 1 in racial and ethnic disparities in America. It's called the 10 Worst States for Black Americans, and again, Wisconsin, we rate number 1. This considers disparities in incarceration, in home ownership rates, income gaps, and education gaps. And so in closing, I hope that each of us openly and honestly challenges the white moderate that exists within our leadership and most importantly within ourselves, and that we call out our persistent demons and that we continuously challenge our decisions and assess our decision-making tables to demand and create equity within our spheres of influence, within this community, and within our state. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 brief announcements. First, tonight's meeting will be broadcast on Valley Media Works, Charter Channel 994 on Thursday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. following the meeting, WFRP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The second announcement is, after an exhaustive examination of our sound system, we've determined that part of the problem is you all are not speaking into the microphone. You must be about 6 inches away from the microphone and speaking directly into it to ensure that others can hear what you're saying, including the public in the back. We do have loudspeakers in the ceiling back there, but if you're not speaking directly into the microphone, it's not picking it up. So I may have to remind some of you during the meeting, so please excuse my intervention. Next on our agenda is the call of the roll. Please take your keypads in hand and indicate your presence. We have 26 present. We do have quorum. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the Journal of Proceedings from January the 21st, 2020. You have it in your packet. Moved by Supervisor Beckfield, second by Supervisor Leary. Yes? I guess. Yes? Okay. We'll do this by voice vote. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections to the Journal of Proceedings? I see none. All those in favor of approving the Journal of Proceedings indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are those opposed by nay? It is unanimous. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment. We have about 12 people to speak. most of the people are speaking on the wind turbines. We have two people who are speaking on a different topic. So I'm going to ask, um, sorry, I'm going to ask Bill Schulte and Tab Butler if we may put them at the end of the list. Is that acceptable? Are you out there? Tab Butler, where are you? Okay, is that okay? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't read that correctly, so I'll leave you where you are. And Bill Schulte? Oh, I'm sorry. Where's Tab Butler? Oh, okay. Is that okay with you? You're not speaking on wind turbine. Thank you. Sorry about that confusion. First up is Mary Judd. Mary, are you to be followed by your husband?
Pardon?
Is your husband coming up after you? Okay.
No.
Then I have to explain what we're doing here. Mary's going to speak for 3 minutes. She's then going to speak for the 3 minutes for her husband.
Can I do that?
With the understanding of the group that you don't have 9 minutes. Now, this is a discussion we had. I'm a little bit conflicted about it. To be fair to everyone, it should be 3 minutes, Mary. Could your husband?
Understood differently. I can do my best.
Please do that. I'll be as lenient as I can with it. Please come forward, and you'll be followed by Mike Klotz. Would you stand ready here? Thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. My name's Mary Judd, and I live in the town of Clear Creek. And first of all, I wanted to thank all the people involved in bringing forth the resolution on supporting a change in state regulations in siting of a wind farm. Supervisor Chilson, Beckfield, and then the Committee on Administration that voted on to bring it here. So, but regarding, I wanted to speak on regarding those regulations. And yes, I've spent hours, countless hours looking into this and the history of how these regulations for the PSC came about. Reading articles, reading the wind siting councils, both of them, their ending statements that they made, and how it was worked into coming up with the rules. And unfortunately, what I keep coming up with is how everything was slanted towards making it easier to have wind farms in Wisconsin. Honestly, I don't like that term farm. It's a fancy little term to give you a different idea of what's actually going on with these massive spinning towers. Different articles, different statements made by different people within the articles, which I can't state all of them. One statement, the wind doesn't blow quite as hard, and settlement patterns in Wisconsin make it more challenging to put up big turbines. Well, that tells me two things. We don't have much wind, and our rural areas are more populated. I'll read this whole thing here. In 2011, Wisconsin lawmakers, this is from an article out of the Wisconsin State Journal, Wisconsin lawmakers suspended the new rules designed to streamline the siting and permitting for wind turbines, and later introduced bills that would have created onerous setback requirements. That's the end of the quote. Those setback requirements would have changed from 250 feet to a residence to 1,800 feet from a property line. To me, the 1,250 feet from a residence is onerous to the citizens, and they're referencing the 1,800 feet to a property line being ordinance to the turbine developers. I think the citizens come first. The newly introduced bills failed, and a person who tipped that scale was Senator Dale Schultz, and he was quoted in the Pioneer Press stating that designing new rules would have created too much uncertainty for wind developers, and jobs are at stake in my district, and I just want to get this industry up and doing well. I wonder why he was representing the wind industry. From that same article, they spoke about Senator Frank Lassie, and he gave a quick speech arguing that turbines cause health problems for people near them, and we should get past green energy at any cost when it harms people. That's the end of his quote, and I think he at least tried. So what I understand from the state level to the county level to the town level, there are always statements that in some way or another state to protect the health, safety, and well-being of citizens. And contrary to that, through everything that I've been going through, is that, and how the Wind Siting Council was set up, and positions that were, how they were seated, that council was seated with a majority supporting and or having direct financial interest in the industrial wind industry. And I feel the state has and continues to fail the citizens in this regard, and instead props up the corporations. So I want you asked me to be clear. What
And
I want
brief.
from the county board.
And brief.
Well, I want your continued support. Like I said, the resolution is a good start. And that I want you to ask the PSC for a moratorium, to make that request, whatever entity it is that you'd have to go do that with. And I also would like you to enact a wind ordinance like Trumpeau County did to protect us, to protect the citizens. The last thing, that sheet of paper I put is wind citizens safe wind siting guidelines. And 5 paragraphs down, talks about local control. Thank you, I tried.
Thank you for your effort. Sorry about the confusion.
Yeah.
Mike Klotz is next, followed by Blythe Watcher.
Well, you've already introduced me, but my name is Mike Klotz. I'm a retired jail sergeant for Eau Claire County, and I was pleased to see that Lieutenant Rivestall is going to be making a presentation in a few minutes, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say. He might not want to admit that he knows me, but I think that he will. I think we got along pretty well.
Excuse me, for the clerk, would you provide your address? Your address.
My address?
Yes, please.
Is S14434 North Bunting Road, Osseo, Wisconsin, and in the town of Clear Creek. But I'm not here to speak anything about the Sheriff's Department. I'm here to speak about the proposed industrial turbine development in Clear Creek and Pleasant Valley. My wife and I own land in Clear Creek. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for the attention that many of you have given to the topic over the last several months. You've heard from several of my fellow residents through the last few months, and many or most of you have gotten some communication, written communication, so you probably are aware of quite a bit of this stuff. I'm in agreement with 95% of what they have had to say, so I'm not going to go too much further with that. I was pleased to see that, and I realize it's only a resolution, but thank you for the administration committee for passing that resolution. I guess it's going to be before you tonight as well. I would encourage you to pass that. And I know that there's only so much that the Eau Claire County Board can do. I realize that, but I would like to have it possible that we, the people that are actually living in the proposed the industrial wind area would be allowed to have a say in what happens and not have it just happen by other regulations. I brought with me a document that is of little monetary value, but it means a great deal to me. It's the abstract for the 155 acres of the 247 acres that my wife and I own. It goes all the way back to 1870. It was owned by the state of Wisconsin, then was deeded to given to the railroads. You probably are aware of that. It was sold in 1884 and again in 1890. In 1904, it was sold to Ed and Lena Hagenus, and in 1848 to Russell and Amy Hagenus. And in 1972, a young couple, Mike and Nora Klotz, began dairy farming on that land. And Ed and Lena Hagenus were my wife's grandparents, and Russell and Amy Hagenus were her grandparents and then parents. And I know the names don't mean anything, but our land, our property, I should say, God's land, goes back to 1904. And my wife and I have now been there the longest. So we started dairy farming in 1972, and I've been farming in some way, shape, or form ever since. I now raise and sell hay, and I raise grass-fed beef. I know all the good soil on the farm. I know the rocky soil. I know the light soil. I've watched the sunrise and the sunset for nearly 48 years. I have watched the silhouette of the oak ridges as I am working in the fields in the evening, or I'm out in the garden, or I'm coming back from deer hunting. And I've worked the fields, I've hunted deer, I've cut wood. I've enjoyed the land for all these years. And I'm hoping that I and my wife and family will be able to enjoy the unobstructed beauty of the land that we have for many years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Blythe Watcher, followed by Bill Schulte is last, correct? Okay, sorry. Followed by Tab Butler.
You need my address?
Yeah, identify yourself and your address.
Blythe Wachter, and my address is S11925 Hillview Road.
Thank you.
Geneva. Members of the Eau Claire County Board. Speaking right into this? Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Many residents of the town of Clear Creek would like to thank you for listening to our concerns regarding the proposed industrial wind project in our town. We would especially like to thank Supervisors Chilson and Beckfield, as well as the Administration Committee, for introducing the resolution that you will be considering tonight, which would support changes in state regulations or legislation to require local input in the siting of wind farms. We agree that counties and towns should be guiding the decisions where wind farms can be built. We are the people who would live near these 500 to 750 foot tall turbines, and we are the ones who would be affected by the health, safety, environmental, and financial impacts. This is a great first step, but as more wind farms pop up in Wisconsin, we ask that you educate yourselves by talking to elected officials, health professionals, property assessors, community leaders, landowners, and others living amongst wind turbines. We have talked to people throughout the United States and Canada, including a Tipton County, Indiana county supervisor who now regrets her decision to support a wind farm there. Close to home, our neighbors in Trempealeau County do have input in the siting of wind farms. Trempealeau's zoning ordinance greatly limits where wind turbines above a certain height can be placed in that county. Grassroots movements have started in Wisconsin and other states that seek protections for those living amidst wind turbines. For example, Iowa's largest farm group is calling for statewide regulations that guide where large-scale wind and solar farms can be built to protect valuable farmland, according to the Des Moines Register. Our group of Clear Creek residents who oppose a wind farm in our town have been in contact with other Wisconsin residents dealing with wind farms. We hope to meet with the governor and legislators to discuss our concerns, and we hope that some of you will attend if this can be arranged. We are concerned about climate change and how this will affect Earth. We want to leave our children a livable, beautiful planet. But we do not believe that, at this point in time, industrial wind turbines provide an efficient and effective source of energy. The federal government has spent billions on wind farm subsidies over the past decade, and I would like to see money spent on other renewable alternatives as well. I personally have a geothermal heating and cooling system that transfers heat to or from the ground. It keeps my home at a pleasant temperature year-round, whether there is rain or sun, wind or calm skies. I don't worry about health or safety issues with this system, and I don't have big heating bills. A populated area such as the town of Clear Creek should definitely not be the site of an industrial wind farm. We need to make wise energy decisions to protect the health and safety of people and to preserve the beauty and productivity of our rural lands for future generations. Please join with us as we search for viable solutions.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to clarify, you're not speaking to wind turbines, is that correct? All right, thanks. Our next speaker is Tom Edwards, followed by Vicki Iverson.
My name is Tom Edwards. I have two properties in Clear Creek, S12123 and S12125, Hillview Road. And I'm also for the resolution. The reason for it is twofold. One, my wife has horses, and they're very expensive horses that can skitter and be scared very easily. These are not farm horses that are out plowing. These are not horses that are out during gun season at all. She has been injured before, head, neck, ribs, and down in her pelvis. We would literally end up having to get rid of the horses, and she would have to stop riding them. That's one effect. The second effect from this is the financial effect that it takes on all of us. And it affects the beauty of what we see. That's part of the finances of what happens. So I agree with everything that has been said to this point, and I just wanted to reiterate how this affects people in many different ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Vicki Iverson, to be followed by Bill Schulte.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Iverson. My address is S11925 North Raven Drive, Strum. We just moved to Eau Claire County only 3 months ago, and there's a few points that I just want to discuss. First of all, I read the Eau Claire Renewable Energy Action Plan that recently came out, and I would like to praise the two Eau Claire County board members who are on the steering committee, Jim Dunning and Lydia Boardboom. I was very impressed with that. I know that was a lot of work for you to do, and I just thought it was great, so thank you for that. In reading the plan, several things caught my attention, and those were issues related to conserving the environment and maintaining health and safety. Just a little section on page 12 states the steering committee relied on the natural step 4 system conditions that the city adopted. These are to reduce dependency on fossil fuels, manufacture of toxic chemicals, and encroachment on nature, as well as to meet the justice, safety, health, and social needs of the community. Further down on that same page, the ecosystem stewardship. We will preserve, protect, and enhance the natural world around us for our benefit and for generations to come. That is huge. That's a huge, huge statement. Wind turbines sound good on the surface, but when I researched industrial wind turbine facilities, it doesn't seem environmentally friendly to me. Hundreds of tons of steel and concrete are buried in the ground just for the base of one turbine. Hundreds of tons. Multiply that by 50 or 70. From what I understand, that stays in the ground forever. It does not get taken out long after the wind turbine is gone. That's like having 50 additional small landfills in Eau Claire County. And that's just the part that's below the ground. In 20 to 30 years, when the industrial wind turbines are no longer productive and it costs too much to repair them, there's additional material that needs to be disposed of or recycled, and the blades cannot be recycled. So it's not just the industrial wind turbines that are bad for the environment. Once the energy is produced, it needs to go somewhere. From what I understand, the energy from the proposed industrial wind turbine facility won't even be used in Eau Claire, but will be distributed via high voltage transmission lines hundreds of miles away. La Crosse County, we recently moved from La Crosse County, so I'm going to reference La Crosse County. They had opposed the construction of these lines through their county, but they were unable to stop the construction. The CAP-X 2020 line extended about 150 miles from Hampton, Minnesota, crossed the Mississippi River, and ended up in a new substation near Holmen in La Crosse County. The cost of that was $450 million. The ATC Badger Coulee line continued another 150 miles to Dane County. Cost of that, $580 million. So a total of $1 billion just in Wisconsin, and someone is paying for that. During construction of the high voltage transmission lines in La Crosse, I saw hundreds of trees cut down just near Holmen. I would estimate thousands of trees cut down in La Crosse County alone. How can that be good for our environment? We still own 40 acres near Holmen, and the high voltage transmission lines run less than a mile from the edge of our property. They do not necessarily follow highways. I've seen the high voltage power lines with 120-foot steel poles and lines that need to be strung using helicopters go through woodlands, a golf course, a new housing development, and worst of all, a 150-foot wide path of trees clear cut through the beautiful bluffs to put the lines in, and that doesn't make sense to me. A few years ago, I took a walk on a country road and watched as beautiful maple trees were cut down on a farmyard. A woman came out of the house to watch, and just from her body language and her facial expressions, I could tell that she was devastated. I truly felt sorry for her because I imagined that she had lived there for a long time, and it was difficult for her to see the trees being cut.
Excuse me, Ms. Iverson.
I'm sorry. Okay. I will skip a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm running long on time. So, again, the Eau Claire Renewable Energy Action Plan, because the way I understand it, it discusses actions to be taken within our county to obtain clean renewable energy, similar to Gunderson Health System in La Crosse, who became the first known healthcare system to offset 100% of its fossil fuel with locally produced energy. A few brief comments on health and safety, and because that's also in the Eau Claire Renewable Energy Action Plan. The seizure triggers are flashing lights or light patterns, noises, stress, lack of sleep. Migraine triggers are lights and sound. Cardiac arrhythmia triggers are stress, and these can be traced to industrial wind turbines. I'm almost done.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've seen many reports on health problems related to industrial wind turbines. One that I think is very powerful is in Brown County near Green Bay, and that states the adverse health effects reported by members of the Shirley community are linked to the operation of the Shirley Wind Project wind turbines. They further state it is likely that children represent a group which is particularly vulnerable to the non-auditory health effects of noise. There is a possible risk that exposure to an environmental stressor such as noise may have irreversible negative consequences for this group. They're talking about children. That could be Eau Claire County. That could be the Eau Claire County Health Department. We're not that far off from that. If a solution to a problem creates more problems, then it's really not a solution. Somewhere along the line, the problems that are created by the solution need to be fixed. I would encourage Eau Claire County to consider a county-wide ordinance that would protect our environment and the health of our residents from the consequences of industrial wind turbines. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bill Schulte, and followed by, finally, Tab Butler.
Good evening. I'm Bill Schulte. My wife Sharon and I live at 1409 Marquette Street in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Mr. Chairman, supervisors, I'm going to start by asking you a question. Have you ever reviewed a project or a proposal and immediately had the gut feeling something is wrong, something is not right here? This is my thoughts when I first reviewed Chapter PC 128 of the Wisconsin Building Code, wind energy systems. My concerns were that the document offered local people no room for variances or special conditions or involvement in the permit process. Excuse me. Public Service Commission eliminates input from the county board, the town board, and the people they represent. RWE representatives will argue that you do have choices and input. Their terms for it is participate or non-participation. Participate and you have one or more 700-foot tall, 7-ton wind turbines on your property. Or not participate and have your neighbor's 700-foot tall, 7-ton wind turbines 1,150 feet from your home, business, or community building. Yes, community building. This means churches, schools, 1,150 feet. Not here to challenge your position on climate change, zero carbon emissions, or risk versus value of wind farms. However, you soon will be voting on Superintendent Chilson's resolution, file number 19-20/102. The resolution here again does not challenge your position on wind turbines. It simply gives you, as county supervisors, town boards, and the people we represent, a voice. I ask that Superintendent Chilson's resolution be passed with 100% approval. Oh yes, I started with the event this evening by giving our address as Marquette Street in Eau Claire. However, we do have deep roots in Clear Creek Township. At the time of the Civil War in the 1860s, my wife's great-great-grandparents homesteaded on land in Section 9 of the township. Now, 150 years later, our grandson and his wife are the 7th generation on this land. Our family is committed to being good stewards of this land for the health and the well-being of the generations that will follow us. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Tab Butler.
Speaking on wind turbines, but those were all very good speeches. I'm Tab Butler. I live at 614.
Excuse me. Pull the microphone closer or
Oh, you can't hear me? Like that?
and maybe speak more loudly.
Okay. Does that sound all right? Tab Butler. I'm at 614 East Grand Avenue in Eau Claire. I'm the owner of the In-Town, which is housing and reentry for men coming out of incarceration. I was a teacher for 5.5 years at the Stanley Prison and became aware of the huge need for housing and reentry programs. I retired from the DOC and bought the In-Town a year ago, and I've been learning something new every day since then. I'm also on the board of Round Table Revival, a new nonprofit that supports recovery and reentry services. We had our first kickoff fundraiser on January 31st in an effort to raise money and awareness for one of our projects, the Dry Bar. This is an idea that came from the men at the In-Town. We need a place that's not work and not home, but a third place that's alcohol-free, where a person can relax, socialize, and engage with that ease of association that is so important to the life of a community. Now, we had talked for months with Joe Luganbill about having the Dry Bar in the lobby of the State Theater and calling it the Foyer. A week before our fundraiser, which was going to be at the State, Joe let us know that everything was off. While this was a shock, we were able to recover pretty quickly. JAMP stepped up to lend us a hand and offered their 4th floor space, and that space was perfect for our needs. We had food and beverages from Just Local Food. We had an exceptional speaker named Tamara Ullman. We showed the movie Knife Skills about people who had been involved with the justice system, successfully opening a French restaurant in Cleveland, Ohio. A wide cross-section of people from the community came, and a good discussion ended the evening. So we're just beginning. We have to find a new location for the dry bar, either downtown or on Water Street. We probably need $50,000 to open the place. Right now, Professor Scott Lester's UWC class is working on a marketing plan for us. We also want to get our peer support services up and running. Peer support is the most successful way for a person who has made contact with the justice system to navigate the complexities of the system. Our goal is to provide support from intake court onward. We will need to raise $1,700 for insurance, and then our certified peer support specialist can start the negotiation process with Eau Claire County and the surrounding counties. Our third project is a 13-week mentoring program partnering a person returning to the community with a community member. Each weekly session includes a meal, group sharing, an educational program, and individual mentoring. We plan to get that up and running in the fall. So that's where we are today in our effort to fill in the gaps for recovery and reentry. We believe public resources are better invested in opportunities for recovery and reentry than punishment and incarceration. And we just ask for your support.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment period for this evening. Our next item is reports to the county board under 2.04.320, beginning with oral reports. First is regarding the second floor security screening review. Lieutenant Rievenstall.
Thank you. My name's Dave Rievenstall.
Dave, excuse me. Put the microphone up, please.
Lieutenant Dave Rievenstall with the Sheriff's Office. I oversee the day-to-day operations of the jail and also the second floor courthouse security screening. At the last Securities and Facilities meeting, I provided the committee with the 2019 numbers of how we did on the second floor security screening. At that meeting, I was asked then to present those numbers to you at the county board. Screening started on Tuesday, June 18th. The courthouse was open for 133 days. Out of those 133 days, on average, the second floor screening screened 386 people and 365 bags a day. That's a pretty significant number. To accomplish this, in partnership with Permar Security, and spent just under $40,000 for their staffing. During those 133 days, Permar Security secured 1,658 weapons from people that were trying to get on the second floor. Those include 5 firearms, 1,155 knives or blades, 190 cans of pepper spray or OC, and 308 miscellaneous. Miscellaneous includes hammers, brass knuckles, screwdrivers, wine openers, loose ammo, scissors, can of beer, yes. Those are, I guess, alarming numbers for the sheriff's office to know that people are coming already into the courthouse, going to the second floor with those items that they shouldn't even have in the courthouse anyways. In 2020, the Security and Facilities Committee has some tasks to do. We're finding that people who bring in weapons that don't want to go back to their vehicles or secure them outside the courthouse are now stashing them around the courthouse, in stairwells, behind pipe wells, and in planters. Having weapons unsecured is, I would say, worse than having them secured on somebody. Now anybody walking by has access to those knives, those pepper sprays, the miscellaneous hammers. Other areas of concern that we're going to work on and work towards, the other county employees who work on the ground floor, first floor, third floor, they don't have that same peace of mind that the county employees that work on the second floor who are in security screening or past the security screening. They don't have that peace of mind, that safety that the people that come to their office may have weapons. They've already brought them into the courthouse, already up to the second floor. And finally, one question that we're going to deal with is currently employees don't have to be screened. they're able to use their badge and get around the security screening. But should employees also be screened? That concludes my short presentation. I wasn't beeped at too many times. But
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Questions or discussion? Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The security screening has worked out really well. The two individuals from Permar are very, very nice individuals. Everything moves through very smoothly, and I would be hopeful that everyone in this room has gone through at least once to see how well it works. I'm getting a lot of information from second floor staff that there is a greater sense of security. Prior to implementing the screening, there had been some pretty uncomfortable incidents and threats to different individuals on the second floor. So there is a much greater sense of security. So I'm hopeful that, and Lieutenant Rewinstall knows I'm thinking about this, that we start to look at whether or not there should be a single point of entrance, or in the alternative, have screening at the City County Health Department as well as on the first floor of the courthouse, so that we would be capturing more individuals. It's gone very, very smoothly, and I commend the Sheriff's Department, and certainly it seems to have worked out very well. So I think that they really deserve a congratulations on this, and they've done a really great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Rewinstall. The next report is on speaker piece and strategic planning by Administrator Schaaf.
Thank you, and I will be brief. You have before you on your desks a flyer, and I have a request. And that request is that you take the dates that are listed there and identify those that will work for your schedule and attend. We will actually be posting all of these as a public meeting and just indicating that we may have a quorum of the board at any one of these meetings, and that you will not be discussing actual business from the standpoint of determining a resolution on anything. So we won't run into that problem. So we encourage you to participate in these meetings, and also to share the word with individuals in your sphere of influence. Each of you knows a great number of people. You know the members of your district, and we would ask that you invite them to participate. We are in the process of preparing a website, so we will have all of our materials on a website as well, and you'll be receiving the link for that later this week. And again, your attendance and your participation in spreading the word are very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Supervisor Schneider.
The version that was passed out does not list ADA accommodations, but it is listed in a later version. Sending out the later version to everybody would be useful.
Yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is reports from the Finance Department under written reports. You have those reports in front of you on the desk. Are there any questions? Is there any discussion regarding these? Oh, Supervisor Gatlin? Your microphone is not. Is the red light on your microphone? No?
Is your amber light on?
Sorry. Try it again.
I just wanted to suggest that persons in this room that we reach out to neighborhood associations, because they've been very active lately in promoting this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is presentation of petitions, claims, and communications. First is a proclamation for Fair Housing Week for March 15th to the 21st, 2020. You have this in your packet. The chair looks for a motion to approve. Motion by Supervisor Gatlin, second by Supervisor Bates. Any discussion, questions? Please take your keypads in hand and vote on the proclamation of Fair Housing Week. Thank you. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item is rezoning request in the town of Pleasant Valley from Nicholas A. Sembling and Rebecca J. Sembling. This item will go on to a future agenda. The third item is rules of the board. It's a memo reminder from the chair asking you to look over the rules of the board and make any recommendations for change that you think might be advisable. We're not doing that tonight. This is just a reminder to look them over. Next item on our agenda is first reading of ordinances by committees. The first is file 108.
To repeal.
Sorry, go ahead.
To repeal and recreate Section 3.20.005 of the Code, salaries of elected officials, and amending Section 3.20.010E of the Code, benefits of elected officials.
This item is here for first reading, so it will go on to the agenda of a future meeting for the second reading and a vote. Next item is file number 85.
To amend Section 9.70.001 of the Code, declaration of policy, and to amend Section 9.70.005D of the Code, definitions.
This item also is a change in ordinance, and this is first reading. It will go on to second reading in a future meeting. Next is file 79.
To create Chapter 12.74 relating to the approval of broadband network projects.
This also is a change in county code and ordinance, and it will go to second reading in a future meeting. Next item is Section 10, reports of standing committees, commissions, and boards under 2.04.160, and second reading of ordinances. First is from the Committee on Administration is file 95.
A resolution in support of 2019-2020 Senate Bill 576, creation of the Chippewa Valley Regional Transportation Authority.
Motion. Supervisor DeLuca, second Supervisor Henning. Speaking to this, speaking to this, Supervisor Bates and possibly also Supervisor Dunning. Okay, Supervisor Bates, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution that you have in front of you is in support of Senate Bill 576. The purpose of that particular Senate bill is to create the Chippewa Valley Regional Transportation Authority. This is a regional transportation authority which would exist for the purpose of establishing and maintaining and operating a comprehensive local transportation system. And it's mainly, of course, this transportation would be strictly for the transportation of persons. That means that it would have to have a governing board, and that would come out of the county appointed, municipalities appointed, and an appointment by the governor as well. If indeed this Senate bill, which is at the state level right now, working on it right now, should go into law, it would be necessary for this county board to adopt a resolution authorizing the county to become a member of the Chippewa Valley Regional Transportation Authority. This resolution would need then to be ratified by a county referendum held in Eau Claire County. If adopted, then the Board of Supervisors in Eau Claire, by the county here in Eau Claire, then Chippewa County would also have the option of becoming a member by going through the same process, passing a resolution, and then potentially having to use the ratification through a referendum. So I would hope that, considering this has been in the works for quite a long period of time, that you would support it and would invite my colleague, Jim Dunning, who's been involved with this significantly along the way, to add anything that he may choose.
Thank you. Just a reminder to you, what we're voting on tonight is a resolution in support of the enabling legislation.
And that's how I started, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Dunning.
Thank you for this opportunity. The West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition has been working for many, many years, since before my time on the board, and I think somewhere around 2000 they started working on trying to provide rail service to Eau Claire, to the cities. Over the years, they have worked on the high-speed, trying to get a high-speed rail routed through here from Minneapolis, St. Paul to Chicago, and that has not come to fruition. However, in the last year or two, we have found a firm that that does development of rail, and in the process of doing this development, they've been working with us. We've been working with Union Pacific. We've been working with the state of Wisconsin, state of Minnesota, trying to work at least with a commuter rail from Eau Claire to St. Paul. It's getting closer and closer. There's certainly nothing, there's no signature on any dotted lines. But in order, if it were to come to the point of where we actually have the three parties, Union Pacific, the Corridor Rail, and the Rail Coalition coming together to be able to put this into place, we would need an operating system of some sort that would be able to regulate, and not so much regulate, but be able to control the issues between here and St. Paul. In addition, so that's where the Regional Transit Authority comes in. A number of years back, we had that capability. Was removed from the legislature or from Eau Claire County a number of years back. Since that time also, we've had the Gateway Corridor, which was a study from St. Paul to Eau Claire to look at the transportation issues that were needed. And in addition to that, with the state of Minnesota claiming that the Eau Claire to St. Paul is their number 2 route for that they want to see done, it has a lot of support, and so we're wanting the RTA in order to be able to start getting organized and have some method of management of the issues. In the last couple of months, we have also started looking into since we aren't going to immediately have high-speed rail, there is an Amtrak that goes from St. Paul to La Crosse to Toma, and of course on to Chicago. We're looking at the possibility of a bus service from Eau Claire to meet the train in Toma and come back. So that is another issue that we would be looking at using with that a RTA would be able to assist us with. So we really feel this is an important thing that would allow the governments to come together and the various county agencies to work. Initially, our thought is not looking at it from a fiscal perspective that that there would be a tax, although I gather from RTAs that is a possibility. That was not our reason for pushing this. We want to be able to coordinate, and that's where it would come into.
Thank you. I see no request to speak. Supervisors, please take in hand your keypads and vote on file 95. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is file 102.
Supporting a change in the state regulations or legislation to require local input in the siting of wind farms.
Motion, Supervisor Chilson. Second, Supervisor Bleary, excuse me. Speaking to this, Supervisor Bates, but I am assuming also Supervisor Chilson may have a few words. I'm sure he has a few words. I usually do, don't I? Yes, yes. I'm acknowledging that. Supervisor Bates.
I think for county board members this evening, that there have been many individuals who have spoken with passion and certainly concern in regard to the issue of the wind farm, as they are called, sightings. And obviously this resolution encourages that. And it's always pleasant to, as a county board member, to find when you come into the chamber that are people who are really interested in what we're doing and to take the time and the effort to be here. What this resolution really encourages is for the state to do that exact same thing. Whenever we have something that imposes a particular process on a locale, it seems just absolutely not reasonable to completely exclude the individuals who are going to be impacted by it. So this resolution, really what we're asking is that the state regulations or legislation to require local input in the siting of wind farms. And I think that's sort of what this whole process of having local input spread now to a state level is all about. So I would hope that even though I don't think there's one person here on our board who isn't committed to reducing fossil fuel impact on our environment, I think the question is, have we done all that we can to be sure that as we advance with these technologies, that they're put in the appropriate places with a really good impact? And we won't know that unless we really take time to listen to each other. So I urge your support. I urge all of your support of this resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Chilson, followed by Supervisor Dunning. Okay, we'll try it again. Is it on?
Is your amber light on? Supervisor Chilson, is your amber light on?
There we go.
Thank you.
There it's on. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I considered this resolution, you know, early on I got asked a lot. I said, people would come up and they say, well, where are you at on wind farms? My response was, well, I don't really know. I don't know anything about wind farms. The citizens that are here tonight, I will commend them, did an excellent job. I got a lot of educational material. And you know what? It was nice because when the opportunity presented itself, I would sit down and page through it. I'd read it. A lot of information in those packets. And what you're able to do with that information is you're able to start to piece it together and put your own idea about what's going on and how this whole thing, all the pieces fit together. I relate it back to my time on planning and development. When I got on P&D, a lot of the things that you will have come to you, if there's a rezoning of land, somebody wants to change their zoning, well, that's going to come for a hearing. If somebody wants to put up an accessory structure exceeding 1,200 square feet, that gets a public hearing at planning and development also. What doesn't happen is a project like this, and in those projects, the neighbors within a certain boundary are notified. They're put on a mailing list. You receive a communication from the county. You're told when the hearing is going to be. Meetings are at 7 o'clock, and you show up, and you can provide testimony just like was done tonight. But because this project is over 100 megawatts, that local input is gone. And that doesn't seem, when you really think about it, that really doesn't make sense. Who is going to better listen to our own citizens and neighbors on a project like this? We as county people to have some input, or a board that convenes itself several hundred miles away from the area that really is not connected to the citizens that are affected by a project like this. So, concluding with that, and just one other thing, I got to thinking about what other projects in my time on the board have been of a similar impact. The only one that I can think of or come up with is the sand mines. And I just started to reflect, is like, what would the reaction have been if you'd have said to all the folks that came, Supervisor Gibson, you remember, we had lots and lots of meetings on sand mines, and lots of people spoke. If we would take that away from our citizenry, from the neighbors that are affected by it, that doesn't seem right to me. So I hope everybody can take a look at this. I hope that it makes sense to you, and I hope we do send a unanimous vote in support of this tonight.
Thank you. Supervisor Dunning, followed by Supervisor Kronk.
Because I was mentioned earlier as being part of the sustainability resolution, of which wind is one of those components, I have mixed feelings. However, having been through the development of a wind farm on my own property in southwestern Minnesota over 2 periods of time, I realized that this portion of Eau Claire County, in fact maybe most of Eau Claire County, is not suitable for wind farms, the wind generating system, so I'm not using farms anymore. So this is a situation where the developers that I have worked with over the 2 projects before approached it from totally different ways. The first one was very blunt, did it all secretive, and was trying to sneak it in, so to speak, even though it was very obvious what they were doing. The second one approached it from a more friendly version, and as a result, we ended up with 134 wind generators within probably a 36 square mile area. It was a 200 megawatt system. But we have an entirely different landscape. You know, I can see the sunset, and unless my neighbor's barn 2 miles away blocks it, you know, it's flat and no trees, and it suited itself, and that's where wind generators ought to be, not on hilltops not view is one thing, but also it becomes difficult to get to. These are out in the middle of open fields. The farmers loved them, as far as that I know anyway, because it gave them a good financial input, and but that was a whole different situation than what we have here. I'm going to vote to this resolution to approve it, because I think we need that, and I am not certain that this is a good project for this county, even if I'm in favor of sustainability.
Thank you. Supervisor Kronk, followed by Supervisor Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to also say thank you to everybody that came out tonight and in the past to speak on issues such as this. And I think that whether we're talking about, wind turbines, or we're talking about landfills, or we're talking about housing or our criminal legal system, we're talking about education, or we're talking about transportation, those most impacted by the decisions that we are trying to make and the issues that we are trying to solve need to be at the decision-making tables. So tonight, for me, it's not at all about, renewable energy or disagreeing or agreeing with, wind turbines or not, but it's about those most impacted by the decisions we're trying to make and the issues we're trying to solve need to be at the table. So I appreciate everybody coming out tonight to speak. I appreciate the certified letters that I had to run to the post office on my lunch break quickly to get. I really do. I mean that in all sincerity, because that's what we're here for. We're not here to be convenienced. We're here we're here because we are representing our constituents. We're representing our community. So thank you. And I also appreciate Supervisor Chilson, Beckfield, and others that brought this resolution forward. I'm really happy and sometimes pleasantly surprised to see an ally. And again, those most impacted by the decisions we are trying to make need to be at the table. So I will be supporting this resolution, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anton, followed by Supervisor Neiman.
Thank you. I have an interest that comes from a couple of sources. One, I lived with turbines on 4 sides of the 43 acres that I had in Mason County, Michigan. I could hear them. I still hear them in my ears because one of the things that happens if you're near them for any length of time, you carry with it a permanent ringing in your ears. Took us over 2 years to sell the property, and that was only because someone came by who said, I love wind turbines and I'd like to be here, and they bought it. But we took a financial hit in the process of selling it. Speaking to an issue, just 2 of them very quickly. One, with regard to noise, the thing that really hurts most of us if we're living in that area is something we don't hear. Infrasound, it's below the threshold of hearing, enters our ears through the hairs, and it affects us, and we say there's no noise, but in fact there really is a disturbing influence on our brain activity. And the other one has to do with the emotions that are involved in this thing. We started in 1991 in Mason County to build these 57 wind turbines, and they were built in the course of about 1.5 years. The people were so disturbed that it wasn't until after the wind turbines were finally shut down in 2014 that the remaining 17 lawsuits against the wind turbine people were finally settled. And in the meantime, people sat on one side of the pew, away from the others. They'd walk across the street if they were in town. It was a disturbing personal element. I didn't hear anything about the personal element being mentioned here, but this sort of thing does happen when people get highly charged emotionally, and this is an issue that often will do just that. And we don't need that in this community. We need to come together rather than come apart at the seams, and this is an element of the project that I would hope we would give some attention to and as we think about it. I'm certainly in support of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Neiman, followed by Supervisor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also support a resolution that allows input of people that are most impacted by changes. I would hope that there's opportunity and the same kind of scrutiny that's given to other forms of energy production. There are health implications for all types of energy development, as well as other kinds of industrial complexes that are created. And so I just would hope that the same kind of attention will be given to all the other forms. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Jansen, followed by Supervisor Knight.
So a lot of the comments that I was planning on saying have already been said, so I will keep this brief. I am very much in support of this, but the first thing that I would like to do is to thank all of the residents of Clear Creek and Pleasant Valley for all of the efforts that you have put into educating us as county board members. Like Supervisor Chilson said, I did not know anything on a high level about wind turbines before this, and you've been doing a great job of connecting us with fabulous resources. One of the resources that you connected us with was Jane Harper. She was from Tripton County in Indiana. She was a commissioner there. I had a fabulous conversation with her last week for an hour where she talked about her decision. She voted in favor of implementing the wind turbines in her community at first and then regretted it. And so we had a really great long conversation where she answered a ton of my questions, just firsthand, somebody that's been through this process. So that was extremely helpful. And one of the things that really stuck to me is kind of what Supervisor Anton was talking about. It was a topic that tore her community apart. And we've had some issues. First term supervisor, I think probably one of the most contentious things that I've seen was our vehicle registration fee. But after that passed, people kind of adjusted to it. What she said with these wind turbines is that that is a constant reminder of this conflict that has divided her community. Every time they walk outside, they see them and they see that conflict. And that's why I'm really supportive of this particular resolution, because if we're not even letting the folks who this is impacting have their voices be heard, and they're going to walk outside and see these things and realize that nobody listened to them and they weren't given that opportunity to speak, that's not right. And so thank you very much, Supervisor Chilson and Beckfield and everybody for bringing this to the table.
Thank you. Supervisor Knight.
Just a point of clarification. It was my understanding that once a wind farm reaches a certain size, it's basically in the hands of the Public Service Commission, and I think this resolution speaks to that. But some of the speakers today were talking about a resolution in Trimble County that may have, where the county may have been able to influence the siting of these big windmills. Do you know anything about that, Mr. Sullivan?
No, not in Trimble County. I don't know anything about that. I do know that they mentioned that about us having a wind ordinance. We do have a wind ordinance. It's 18.30 point, you know what it is offhand? I wrote it down somewhere. 18.30.260. But you also need to be aware that right now our Title 18 is in the process of being reviewed and rewritten, so that may change the language that's in there right now. So, but that obviously has to come before the board for approval. So.
Okay. Supervisor Knight. Okay.
I'm
All right.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Schneider. You're on, Supervisor Schneider, I hope. Would you please move closer to the mic? Thank you.
I'm a neophyte, so maybe, I'm not sure. I have a question, and the question is, even if we pass this, that doesn't say anything about whether the particular company goes forward with their...
That's correct. This is a resolution supporting a change at the state level in regulation or statute. I believe that's all it is.
Correct.
Right.
Encouraging public input.
Right. Okay. Supervisor Schneider, okay. Thank you. I see no other requests to speak. Supervisors, please take in hand your keypads. And Oh, sorry.
Let me just speak to that. There is a written amendment that was offered. I drafted it. It's really a grammatical change. If you look at the third whereas paragraph, starting on line 13 through 16, if you read that paragraph, it is not grammatically correct. The changes are as follows. On line 13, the second to last word where it says and as result, we would insert the word a there. On line 14, following the word statutes, you would insert the word and, so it would read according to the Wisconsin statutes and the administrative regulations. And then on line 15, delete the word handled. Those changes really don't make any changes to the meaning of the paragraph. They're just cleaning up the language. And that amendment was signed by Supervisor Chosen. We believe we can just incorporate it into the motion for the resolution.
Supervisor Crunk.
May I ask if it would also make sense for the person who created the resolution or came up with the resolution, and I'm not sure if this is out of order or not, but to add on line 36 where it's being sent also to the Wisconsin Counties Association?
Are you making that amendment?
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
That would be amendment if she's making that.
You'd have to make a formal amendment.
Okay, may I make the amendment that on line 35 of the resolution, I'm sorry, on line 36 of the resolution, after Public Service Commission, that doesn't make sense. Sorry. On line 35 of the resolution, after members of the Wisconsin legislature, we include members of the Wisconsin Counties Association.
I would suggest just say the Wisconsin Counties Association.
Okay, Wisconsin Counties Association.
Okay. And we have a second from Supervisor Dunning. We could do this rather quickly. I'm going to assume there's not going to be a discussion of the amendment, so I will call for a vote on the amendment. Please take your keypads in hand and vote on the amendment. It is unanimous. Thank you. We're back to the main motion now. Supervisor Henning.
Well, I hit that by mistake, so.
Well, I'm sorry, you have to talk. Thank
Once
you.
upon a time.
I know that. Okay, sorry. So we're back to the main motion. I see no requests to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 102. As amended. Thank you. Supervisor Schneider, okay, thank you. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is file number 092.
Authorizing reclassification of the Human Resource Director.
Motion by Supervisor Beckfield, second. Supervisor Russell. Supervisor Pagonis.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that this be referred to Finance because I believe there's a fiscal impact associated with it.
Thank you. I prefer to handle that as a motion to refer, so we have a motion.
I move the...
No, that's okay. I got it.
I can speak to that,
Oh.
Stella, if you'd like.
Yes, before we have a second, it's relevant. Go ahead.
It is. This is an item that is going to be incorporated into the budget. The budget impact is $271, and the monies exist within the existing budget. And so it, as like any resolution, it may have a fiscal impact, but that fiscal impact is not one that is in need of specific action in order to move it forward this evening. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. It doesn't, I understand you're saying that you wanted it moved to finance and budget because of the fiscal impact.
It was my understanding that any resolution that has a fiscal impact needs to be taken up. And I don't know if if county ordinance says if it's a de minimis fiscal impact, then we don't need to worry about it.
No, I guess I would actually look to the Corporation Council to speak to this, but many of our resolutions will have a fiscal impact and have a fiscal note about what that fiscal impact is. The times that they actually are referred to finance and budget is if there is an amendment to the budget. There is not going to be an amendment made to the budget because the funding is already in the budget and it will come out of existing funds.
Supervisor Pagonis.
I don't see how it's not an amendment to the budget because it's a change to wages. So that, I think by definition, becomes an amendment. So again, I guess I didn't know that in the ordinance it says if it's a de minimis amount that it doesn't need to come before finance.
It's this one's 271.
Yeah. $5,000 of adjustments would be handled by the finance director.
But no adjustment is being made because the line item is not changing at all. The location of the wages within the budgeted amount is changing, but that is not an item that would go back to the Finance and Budget Committee for consideration. If a department is able to make the changes and it's able to do that within its existing budget, that does not go to Finance and Budget.
I'm going to make a ruling from the chair that the Corp Council has provided input and clarification, and so we will proceed with the resolution as it's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion of the resolution authorizing reclassification of the Human Resources Director. Sorry. Supervisor Leary.
Thank you. I had a question for the Human Resources Committee. What was the vote? I assume it was probably unanimous, but it doesn't say here. And when was it considered by the Human Resources Committee?
Supervisor Gatlin.
The vote was 3-0, and 2 members were absent from it.
Okay, but what date? Because normally it's signed and it isn't signed.
Friday, the 14th of February.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I see no other requests to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 092. Supervisor Maury? Thank you. Supervisor Anderson? Thank you. We have
25 to 1.
1 no, 25 yes, so the motion passes. The next item on our agenda is file 99. Our clerk has more files to handle tonight than usual.
Sorry. Authorizing to abolish one FTE Criminal Justice Coordinating Council manager position and to create one FTE Criminal Justice Coordinating Council director.
Motion. Supervisor Gatlin, second Supervisor Lavelle. Speaking to the resolution, Supervisor Gatlin.
Mr. Chair, am I on?
Yes, you are.
The fact sheet shows that the CJCC manager their duties have increased, and they are more acting like department leaders and doing the things that our department leaders are doing. So this is just to bring the position up to that classification.
Thank you. Supervisor Pagonis.
I move that this be referred to Judiciary and Law because I believe the CJCC reports to that Oversight Committee.
Okay, we have a motion.
They report to the Oversight Committee. Now, maybe it's not for oversight purposes.
That's okay. The motion to refer is in order. So we have a motion and a second by Supervisor Chilson. Let's see. Supervisor Pagonis, it's not a debatable point, but do you want to make any clarification about your motion? The motion to refer to committee.
I just want to refer to Judiciary and Law.
Okay, fair enough. I see no.
Do you want a second on that?
The second was Chilson.
Oh, thank you.
I see no other requests to speak, so supervisors, please take in hand your keypads on the motion to refer to committee. Supervisor Schneider. Thank you. Supervisor Russell. And Supervisor Schneider. Thank you. We have 3 noes and 23 yes. The motion passes. The item is referred to committee. Thank you. Next is from the Committee on Planning and Development, File 80.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Union.
Motion? Hello? Motion? Supervisor Henning, thank you. Second? Supervisor Lavelle. Speaking to the file number 80, Supervisor Gibson. I think your mic is on.
It's on now. Okay, this request was to rezone 44.15 acres.
Excuse me, Supervisor Gibson. Speak right into the microphone. There you go. Thank you.
All right, I'll try.
That's better. Thank you.
This rezoning was to rezone 44.15 acres from A2 agriculture to the District I-1, which is non-sewered industrial district. This had went to the Union Town Board, and they voted unanimously to approve this. It was reviewed by Planning and Development. Planning and Development recommended that it meets all the comprehensive plan criteria for Eau Claire County and for the township. And at the Planning and Development Committee, we voted 5-0 in favor, so we recommended approval.
Thank you. Now, Supervisor Schneider, your light is lit. I suspect it may be. Thank you. Okay. I'll clarify that. Thank you. I see no other requests to speak in this item. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 80. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Next is file 83.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Brunswick.
A motion. Supervisor Leary, second. Supervisor Anderson. Speaking to the item, Supervisor Gibson.
This request was to rezone 5 acres of land from AP agriculture to A2 agriculture. For the son to develop a resident on the property. This does meet, again, all the requirements for the comprehensive plan for both the county and the township, and the township voted unanimously to approve this. Planning and Development staff reviewed this and recommended approval of it, and we held a public hearing at Planning and Development Committee level and voted unanimously to approve.
Thank you. I see no requests to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 83. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is file 88.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Washington.
Motion. Supervisor Beckfield, second. Supervisor Dunning. Speaking to the file 88, Supervisor Gibson.
Thank you. Yeah, this is pretty much identical to the last one. This is to rezone 5.2 acres from AP agriculture to A2 agriculture for the grandson to build on the property. This meets all the criteria for both the county and the town's comprehensive plans. Staff reviewed this. They recommended approval of it. The township voted unanimously for approval, and Planning and Development Committee held a public hearing, and we voted unanimously for approval.
Thank you. I see no request to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 88. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, from the Committee on Finance and Budget, file number 97.
Approval of 2019 gifts, grants, and/or donations to Eau Claire County.
Motion. Supervisor Bates, second. Supervisor Chilson. Speaking to the file 97, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is pretty clear cut. Several additional grants have come into the county, so basically these are outside organizations trying to give us money, and so it would be to the benefit of these individual departments, and a total amount of $147,000 additional to the county. So I urge everyone to support this because these organizations are giving us money, and they're all grants.
I don't think this is a body that turns down money, so
And
I see no other requests to speak.
Two-thirds approval.
I'm sorry.
Two-thirds approval.
Because it's a, yes,
The
budget item.
budget alteration, so it
Thank you for the
requires two-thirds
clarification.
approval.
Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 97. Supervisor Gatlin. It is unanimous. We've met the two-thirds requirement. Thank you very much. File number 96.
Authorizing a transfer from the 2020 contingency fund in the amount of $15,000 to replace the actuators at the Lake Eau Claire Dam.
Motion, Supervisor Lavelle, second Supervisor Schaffnagel. I'm sorry, you're hiding back there. I couldn't quite see. Speaking to this, Supervisor Pagonis again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start. Supervisor Stelgis may want to have some input. At the last meeting, we voted for the Parks Department to apply for a DNR grant for this express purpose. The grant won't be applied for until the March timeframe, but we can't wait to repair the dam, the actuators in the dam. So this is a transfer from the contingency, which is kind of like our emergency fund, to the Parks Department because they do not have this amount of money in their capital budget. This also needs a two-thirds approval.
Yes. Thank you. I see no other requests to speak.
You need to.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Supervisor Stelgis, please go ahead.
That's okay.
You're sitting
Hey.
too close to Supervisor Pagonis.
Yeah, I know. I don't get to speak very often, you know.
Sorry. And I need new glasses, both of us.
Just a point of clarification, the grant process that we authorized by resolution either last month or the month previous has an award cycle that wouldn't be awarded until the middle of next summer. And that grant also makes a provision that you can't do any work until the grant is awarded. So I want to be perfectly clear here. We will not apply for this grant that we approved of, which would have covered half of this $15,000. So we're actually moving forward to get spend the entire $15,000 now, because not only are we under a deadline of June 1st completion with the DNR, but also it's timely to fix these gates at a point where we're most vulnerable to controlling dam levels, and that is during spring runoff. So we want to get that done right away.
I'm assuming you're speaking in favor of the motion.
I am speaking in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you. I think then Finance was misled. We were told at Finance, and I'm sorry that Director Pedersen wasn't there, but we were told at Finance that the dam grant program would be still applied for in a reimbursement fashion, because that's the exact question mark that I have on my fact sheet. And we were told, oh yeah, it's not a problem. We're still going to write for this award. So this is new information.
Yeah, I confirmed that with Josh today.
Well, Josh wasn't at the meeting. They didn't remember to invite
But
him.
the reason if I may interject, the reason I actually contacted Mr. Peterson today was that the wording in this resolution correctly states that you can't do any work until the award has been granted. Ergo, we can't do the work this spring because we wouldn't possibly get the grant money until the middle of summer. The grant at this point has not been applied for. I also confirmed that today. So this is actually seeking the entire $15,000. And the urgency of it, I think, still warrants approval because we need to get this done before spring runoff and the DNR deadline.
Supervisor Pagonis.
Well, I agree we need to do it. I mean, the DNR is not providing any flexibility. I'm just bothered that we were given incorrect information at committee. So, but I still think we need to do it.
Okay. I see no other requests to speak. Please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 96. Oh, sorry. Supervisor Leary, did you have a comment? Sorry.
Yes, I do have a question. If we can't apply for the grant, why wouldn't we subtract or delete lines 22 and 23? And it, actually, the way it's worded, it says the expenditures are not reimbursable unless spent after the grant is awarded. So why don't we delete those two lines? I think it's appropriate.
I'm not sure who could speak to that. Supervisor Pagonis.
I'm just wondering.
Well, we voted in favor of applying for the grant in December, so
Right.
this is overturning the resolution we made in December, basically.
Okay, all right.
Supervisor Leary?
All right, that's fine. I just was
Okay.
wondering. Thank you.
I think we were in the middle of the vote there. Is that the result?
Larry still needs to vote.
Supervisor Leary, would you vote on that, please?
Oh, yeah.
It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item is file 101.
Financial policy, revenue availability.
Motion. Supervisor Pagonis. Second. Supervisor Chilson. Speaking to the item, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is simply putting in place a policy regarding revenue that comes into the county after the fiscal year has closed. So it's a 60, 90, and 180-day policy that if there's revenue that was intended for year number 1 and it comes in within these timeframes from year number 2, it would still be booked to year number 1. It's available to be booked for year number 1. The 90 days is specific to intergovernmental grants because we've run into that. And the Aging and Disability Resource Center and Department of Human Services is the 180 days because there are certain grants that have come in notoriously late. So so this is a policy. It's to make our auditors feel better, and it's basically just putting in writing that of how we actually already do it.
Thank you. Supervisor Dunning.
I guess I'm okay.
Sorry?
I was looking for the 30, 60, 90, and I see it on the second sheet.
Thank you. I see no other requests to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 101. Supervisor Moritz
And Neiman.
and Supervisor Neiman. Supervisor? Oh, thank you. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. The last item on our agenda is an appointment. Oh, I'm sorry. Shuffling paper up here, sorry. The second from the last item on our agenda is file number 84 from the Committee on Finance and Budget.
Requiring any department over 50 employees trending significantly and repeatedly over budget to seek approval prior to filling vacant staff positions and to provide fiscal reports to the County Board of Supervisors upon request.
Just a reminder to you that this item was referred to the Joint Committee meeting. The Joint Committee attended to the item and is sending it back onto the floor, so we are back to the vote on the resolution. So I'm going to look for, I think I have to have a motion again. So motion, Supervisor Chilson. Second, Supervisor Henning. Speaking to the item, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've already talked about this considerably. I just want to remind everyone in the room that in 2015 we had a fund balance of $12 million. In 2016, we had a fund balance of $12 million. In 2017, we had a fund balance of $10.5 million, 10.6. In 2018, it went down to 10.1, and the estimated fund balance for 2019 is around 9 million. So if you go to page 3 on the resolution, the reason why our fund balance is going down in those particular years is pretty targeted, and so it feels very irresponsible to me that we're allowing our fund balance to be depleted in this way. So I just urge support for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Supervisor Gatlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new on the team, and I recognize the severity of going over budget. However, there's a line in the fact sheet that bothers me, and it says the presumption is that these larger departments would have additional staff to cover open positions, meaning more work. The 3 departments that this impacts are the 3 departments that already have the most comp time and the most overtime, meaning those employees are working really hard and, when necessary, working more than their share. So my concern is that it will take time, too much time, to fill a position, and in between that time, somebody's truck and somebody's desk is getting somebody else's work, and I worry about it staying there too long and burdening the employee that's already there and impacting the morale and their feeling of being respected. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this.
Supervisor Neiman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not in favor of this resolution for reasons that I've stated before. I believe that there are already processes in place that address this issue. I don't think that this particular resolution is going to stave off the draining of the fund balance, and I think it will create barriers to moving forward with identifying and taking action on the actual causes of the overages. Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification, if you make a motion to table, it effectively kills the motion. It effectively kills the item. A motion to table effectively kills an item unless you take up the item in the same meeting again, which we're not going to do. It's almost the last item. So I'm asking you, is your intention to kill the motion?
Yes.
Okay, that can be accomplished by such a motion. It can also be accomplished simply by having the vote on the motion. Well, it doesn't exactly kick the can, because if the motion is made to table, then the motion is effectively gone. I'm not trying to split hairs. I wanted to find out if your intention was to kill the motion or to put off a discussion or decision.
As opposed to it. My intention was to disagree with the resolution. I think that this has been addressed over and over again, and I think we need a vote.
Okay, I will take that as a request to go to vote on the motion.
Yes.
Okay. We have a request to go to vote. Supervisor Anton, followed by Supervisor Schneider.
A clarification, the statement repeatedly over budget, as I recall, the 3 departments include highway and sheriff's, and they have not repeatedly gone over budget, so it really addresses one organization only. Is that correct?
I think historically that's correct.
So it really only affects one.
Right.
And we're not going to have any truck drivers that aren't replaced because there's no repeatedly over budget occurrence.
Was that a question?
The highway department is not affected by this.
No.
Thank you.
Effectively, I mean, historically, no. Supervisor Schneider. Well, the motion to table would not do that. You might, if you wish to make such a motion, I would suggest we postpone to a definite time. That's the proper motion. Well, yes, it's a backdoor way of doing it. More effective, if I may.
The only way it can be brought back is that the person who voted in favor of tabling the motion would have to make a motion to revive it.
And that has to be done within one meeting.
Right. And then there would have to be a vote on it to revive it.
The chair suggests that we simply proceed to a vote, because as Supervisor Chilson has observed, we're kicking the can down the road. So eventually, sooner or later, we are going to make a decision about this motion. I will. I'm going to make an effective executive decision from the chair. We're going to proceed to a vote on this item. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 84. Supervisor Jansen. Okay. Okay, we have 10 yes and 16 no. The item is defeated. Correct? Yeah. Thank you. Now we will move to our final item on the agenda, and this is an appointment to the Veteran Service Commission. You have the information. I think it's the final page of your packet. The only applicant and the one that the chair is appointing and looking for approval from the board for is Dustin Indermula. So the chair looks for a motion to approve the appointment of Dustin Indermula to the Veteran Service Commission. Motion by Supervisor Bates, second by Supervisor Coffey. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. We'll do it by voice vote. Opposed by nay. Thank you very much. We've reached the end of our agenda. We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715